Ever feel like you just need to get up to speed on something important, but like without wading through, endless product manuals or getting totally lost in a sea of information?
Yeah,
I
totally.
think everyone's been there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, that's exactly what this is all about, right? Welcome to this deep dive where we take a set of sources and really like pull out the essential knowledge that you need to know.
Yeah,
We try to make it efficient and hopefully have some fun along the way too, right?
absolutely. And today, that deep dive is taking us into the core concepts of Dell Unity XT storage systems.
Okay.
And our guide for this is a set of practice questions from the Dell PowerStore Operate 2023 exam.
Okay.
That's D-PST-OE-23 for short.
Right.
Now, even if you're not planning on taking this exam, think of these questions as a really structured way to understand the fundamental capabilities and functionalities of these powerful storage arrays.
Right.
We're talking about getting a guided tour of what makes them tick.
Exactly. And our source gives us some like basic exam context, right? Like there are about 60 multiple choice questions. You get 90 minutes to complete them, and a passing score is somewhere between 63 and 70%.
Right.
But the real value for us is in the practice questions themselves and the explanations behind the correct answers.
Yeah, so the mission of this deep dive is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
We're going to analyze these questions and their answers to pull out the practical insights and key takeaways about Dell Unity XT.
Okay.
Our goal is to help you, the listener, become more informed about enterprise storage solutions without feeling like you need a PhD in storage to follow along.
All right, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Our first question dives right into how you control access.
Okay.
And picture this. A storage administrator needs to restrict access to a Dell Unity XT-NS share that's network-attached storage, which is basically a place where files are stored and shared over a network, and they need to restrict it so that only specific computer IP addresses can connect.
Right. The question asks, which configuration must be applied to achieve this? And the options are A, setting export rules in the NS server settings.
Okay.
B, modifying the access control list, or ACL, on the file system.
Okay.
C, defining host access in the NFS share properties.
Okay.
Or D, setting DNS entries for the clients.
All right, and what's the correct answer?
So the correct answer, according to our source, is C, define host access in the NFS share properties.
Okay, so what makes this the right way to go?
What's particularly efficient here is that Dell Unity XT allows you to directly specify which IP addresses are allowed to access an NFS share right within the share's configuration.
Okay.
It's a very direct IP-centric method for controlling access to these network file shares.
So for like quickly controlling NFS access based on IP address, Unity XT gives you that straightforward setting right there in the share properties.
Exactly.
You don't have to go through any like more intricate ACL configurations.
Precisely, the explanation in the source points out that ACLs, which offer more granular control over users and groups, are often more associated with SMB shares. That's the standard for file sharing in Windows environments.
Right. This highlights a key difference in how access is typically managed for these two common network file sharing methods on Dell Unity XT.
Okay.
So for you, the listener, the takeaway is knowing the quickest and most direct route to manage NFS access.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to question 2.
Okay.
This one is all about keeping performance humming along in the background.
Okay.
The question asks, which feature allows Dell Unity XT to automatically move data between different storage tiers within a pool?
Okay.
And the choices are A, FastVPB, FastCache C, data reduction, or D, compression policies.
And the answer here is A, FastVP.
FastVP. Okay.
Yeah.
For those who may be newer to storage terminologies, like what exactly is a storage pool, and then what does FastVP do within it?
Sure. So think of a storage pool as a collection of physical storage devices, different types of drives perhaps, that are grouped together and presented as a single larger chunk of storage.
Okay.
Now, FastVP stands for Fully Automated Storage Tiering for virtual pools.
And what's fascinating here is how modern storage often uses different types of storage media with varying speeds and costs.
Right.
So you might have super fast flash drives for high performance, and then perhaps SAS drives, which offer a balance of performance and cost,
Okay.
and even lower cost, higher capacity NLS drives.
So different lanes on the data highway, so to speak.
Exactly. FastVP is the intelligent system that acts like a traffic manager.
Okay.
It continuously monitors how frequently data is being accessed.
Okay.
Now, this data lives on what are called logical unit numbers, or LUNs, which are essentially virtual storage volumes.
Got it.
Data that's being used a lot gets automatically moved to the faster flash tier to give you that performance boost.
Okay.
And then data that's not being accessed often gets moved to the more cost-effective, higher capacity tiers.
Makes sense.
The really powerful thing is that this is all automated.
Right.
You configure it, and the system handles optimizing both performance and cost without constant manual adjustments. So for anyone managing a busy storage system, that hands-off optimization is a huge advantage.
Yeah, it's a set it and forget it approach to keeping things running optimally.
Exactly.
Question 3 looks at something called consistency groups. The
Right.
question asks, what is the primary function of a consistency group on a Dell Unity XT system?
Okay.
And the options are about unified access, ensuring snapshot consistency across multiple LUNs, grouping LUNs for replication across pools, or improving performance.
The correct answer is B, ensure snapshot consistency across multiple LUNs.
Okay.
This is a really important concept when you're dealing with applications that store their data across multiple storage volumes, those LUNs we just talked about.
Right. Why is ensuring consistency across multiple LUNs so critical when taking a snapshot?
So imagine a database application.
Okay.
Its information might be spread across several different LUNs.
Right.
If you take a snapshot, which is like a point-in-time copy of each of those LUNs at slightly different moments, you could end up with a backup that isn't truly consistent. It's like trying to take a picture of a fast-moving scene.
Okay.
If your camera shutter isn't synchronized perfectly, some parts of the image might be blurry or out of sync with others.
Right.
Consistency groups solve this by allowing you to take a snapshot across all the designated LUNs at essentially the same instant in time.
So you're capturing a synchronized moment across all the related pieces of data.
Exactly.
For a clean and reliable backup or recovery.
Precisely. The source uses the term crash consistent, meaning the data will be in a state as if the system had just experienced a sudden halt.
Okay.
But all the interdependent parts are in a coherent state.
Right?
This is absolutely vital for maintaining the integrity of data for those applications that span multiple LUNs, making your backups and disaster recovery efforts much more reliable.
Okay.
So the key insight here is that for multi-LU applications, consistency groups are vital for reliable backups and recoveries by ensuring data across volumes is captured in the synchronized state.
Makes sense.
And this raises an important question for anyone managing critical applications.
Yeah.
How do you guarantee data integrity during backup and recovery processes?
Definitely something to keep in mind.
Sure.
Our next question shifts our focus to automation.
Yeah.
It asks, which CLI tool can be used for scripting storage management tasks on Dell Unity XT systems?
All right.
CLI stands for a command line interface.
Right.
The choices are A, Unisphere REST API B, SVC Diag C, UEM CLI, and D, ESRS Gateway.
The answer here is C, UMMCLI.
UMCLI. So the command line interface for Unity.
Yes.
What does that enable you to do?
So UMCLI, which stands for Unity Command Line Interface, provides a text-based way to interact with and manage your Dell Unity XT system.
Okay.
What's particularly valuable about this is its power for automation.
Right.
Instead of using a graphical user interface for every single task, you can write scripts using UMCLI commands to automate repetitive actions.
Okay.
This can drastically improve efficiency and reduce the chance of manual errors, especially in larger storage environments.
Can you give us some specific examples of tasks that you might automate with UMCLI?
Sure, think about routinely creating new storage volumes, those LUNs we discussed, or managing snapshots on a schedule.
Okay.
Maybe you want to automatically create daily snapshots and delete older ones.
Right.
You could also automate tasks like setting up or monitoring data replication between different Unity XT systems.
So for anyone managing a substantial storage infrastructure or someone who's really focused on streamlining operations, UMCLI is a pretty powerful tool to have in their automation toolkit.
It is, while the REST API offers another powerful way to integrate with other systems for direct command line scripting and automation of Unity-specific tasks.
Yeah.
UMCLI is the go-to.
Okay, so the core insight here is that UMCLI empowers storage administrators to automate those repetitive tasks through scripting, which can drastically improve efficiency and reduce manual errors in large environments. That sounds like a huge time saver.
Oh, it is.
Okay, so before you can even think about replicating data from one storage system to another, there are some fundamental prerequisites that need to be in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So question 5 asks, which action is required before configuring synchronous block replication between two Dell Unity XT systems?
Okay.
And the options are enabling Cloud IQ integration, ensuring both systems are running the same OE version, that's operating environment version, configuring NFS exports, or creating SMB shares.
The correct answer is B. Ensure both systems are running the same OE version.
Okay. The operating environment, that's essentially the software that runs the Dell Unity XT system.
It is.
So why is having the same software version so essential for synchronous replication?
Well, if we think about how software systems communicate,
Right.
especially when it comes to something as critical as real-time data replication,
Yeah.
compatibility is absolutely key.
Right.
The two Unity XT systems need to speak the same language in terms of the replication features they support, how the data is formatted and transferred, and the underlying communication protocols they use. But if they're running significantly different OE versions, you run a real risk of incompatibility.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, you don't. This could lead to replication failures, data inconsistencies, or even data corruption.
Right.
It's all about ensuring a consistent and reliable foundation for protecting your data by keeping those systems in sync at the software level.
It makes perfect sense. You need that common language for like smooth and reliable communication between the two systems.
Absolutely.
Question 6 takes us to the opposite end of the data lifecycle when it's time for dilution.
Okay.
It asks, what happens when a LUN, that virtual storage volume, is deleted on a Dell Unity XT storage array?
Right.
The choices are about snapshots being automatically retained, the data being inaccessible but recoverable via rollback, the LUN and its data being permanently deleted, or the storage pool capacity remaining unchanged.
The somewhat sobering reality is that the correct answer is C. The LUN and its data are permanently deleted.
Permanently.
Yes.
That sounds like a point worth emphasizing.
It is the explanation in our source stresses that deleting a LUN on Unity XT is an irreversible action.
So unless you have separate backups in place or replication configured to another system, when you delete a LUN, the data it contained is gone.
That's correct. The storage space will be freed up and returned to the storage pool.
Okay.
But the data itself cannot be simply recovered through an undo operation on that Unity XT system.
That's a really crucial piece of information for anyone managing these systems, right?
It is.
It highlights just how important having robust backup and recovery plans are.
For sure.
There's no built-in safety net for deleted LUNs on Unity XT itself.
Exactly. It underscores the need for proactive data protection strategies.
All right, let's shift back to efficiency.
Okay.
Question 7 asks, which statement best describes Dell Unity XT's data reduction feature?
Right.
The options cover whether it applies only to file-based storage, requires manual scheduling, includes compression and deduplication, or is supported only for thick provisioned LUNs.
The most accurate description here is C, includes compression and deduplication.
So it's a combination of techniques working together to save storage space.
Precisely. Dell Unity XT's data reduction technology works by first compressing the data as it's being written, making it smaller,
Okay.
and then by identifying and removing duplicate blocks of data.
Right.
That's the deduplication part.
Got it.
What's particularly effective is that this process typically happens in line,
Okay.
meaning as the data is actively being written to the storage array. This helps to maximize the storage efficiency right from the start.
And it's not limited to just one type of storage on the system.
Correct. The explanation clarifies that data reduction is applied to both thin provisioned block storage, those LUNs we've been discussing, and also to file storage, such as your NFS and SMB shares.
Okay.
This can lead to really significant reductions in the overall amount of physical storage capacity you need, which directly translates into cost savings.
Right.
So for listeners looking to get the most out of their storage investment, understanding and leveraging data reduction is key.
Definitely a valuable feature for optimizing resources.
That's
Question 8 is about ensuring the system has the support it needs.
okay.
It asks, a customer wants to receive proactive support from Dell Technologies, which Unity XT feature must be enabled.
Okay.
The choices are Unisphere Central Cloud IQ Secure Remote Services, or ESRS, or Service Mode Access.
The feature that enables that proactive support is C, Secure Remote Services, or ESRS.
ESRS, got it. How does enabling ESRS facilitate proactive support from Dell?
So ESRS establishes a secure two-way connection between your Dell Unity XT system and Dell's support infrastructure.
Okay.
What's really advantageous about this is that it allows Dell to remotely monitor the health and status of your system.
Okay.
If potential issues arise, the system can automatically send alerts to Dell support often before you. The customer might even be aware of a developing problem.
So it's like having a direct, secure line to support that's constantly watching over your system.
Exactly. This enables proactive diagnostics and can even allow Dell support to remotely access the system with your permission, of course, to troubleshoot and resolve issues. This often leads to much faster resolution times and can help minimize potential downtime.
Right.
So for any organization that values system uptime and wants to reduce the administrative burden of constant manual monitoring, ESRS is a really valuable tool.
Makes sense. Having that proactive support can be a huge benefit.
It can.
Our next to last question, number 9, dives into how you manage performance at a granular level.
Okay.
It asks, which setting determines the performance policy for LUNs within a Unity XT storage pool?
Right.
The options are tiering policy host, IO limit storage group assignment, or access zone.
The setting that directly controls the performance characteristics for your LUNs is a tiering policy.
Okay, so we talked about automated tiering earlier with FastVP.
Right.
So how does this tiering policy setting specifically influence the performance of a LUN?
So the tiering policy is where you essentially instruct the system on how aggressively it should try to keep a specific LUN's data on the faster storage tiers within the pool.
Got it.
The source outlines a few primary policy options. There's start high, then auto tier, which is typically used for performance-sensitive applications.
Makes sense.
New data initially lands on the fastest tier, and then FastVP takes over to move it based on how it's being accessed over time.
Okay.
Then you have the auto tier policy, where the system dynamically moves data based on usage patterns right from the beginning.
Right.
And finally, there's often a highest available tier policy, which aims to keep the data on the absolute fastest tier accessible as much as possible.
So it's about like fine-tuning the storage performance based on the specific demands of the applications using those LUNs.
Precisely. It gives you a level of control over how your storage resources are utilized, allowing you to prioritize high performance for critical workloads while potentially optimizing costs for less demanding applications by keeping their data on more economical storage tiers.
All right, last but not least, question 10 focuses on enabling file sharing.
Okay.
It asks, which Unity XT resources are required to support the creation of SMB shares, those used in Windows environments? The choices are ISCSI interface VMFS data store NAS server with SMB protocol enabled or file snapshot schedule.
The fundamental requirement for creating SMB shares on a Unity XT system is C, a NAS server with the SMB protocol enabled.
That seems pretty straightforward.
It is.
But can you elaborate on the role of the NAS server in enabling SMB sharing?
Sure. So think of the NAS server as the central point for all file-based services on your Unity XT system,
Okay.
whether it's NFS for Linux and Unix environments or SMB for Windows-based file sharing.
Right.
Before you can create an SMB share, you need to have a NAS server instance running and specifically configured to communicate using the SMB protocol.
Okay.
The NAS server acts as the gateway, handling the requests from client computers trying to access files over the network using the SMB protocol.
So without a properly configured NAS server with SMB enabled, you simply can't establish those Windows-compatible file shares.
That's right.
This deep dive was really just a starting point in appreciating the capabilities and considerations surrounding advanced storage systems like the Dell Unity XT.
It was a great jumping off point.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.